Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome back to the last photography review show of the year. Welcome to my little studio here in West Sussex. Starting from the beginning, I hope you all had a great week, and I hope that you're ready for a little bit more photography fun before the year is over. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub. I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. And this show is something that I've been doing for over 2 years now. And it's always a lot of fun. What we do, we look at your images and we try to give you tips and tricks on how to improve your photography moving forward. Now, let's start by talking about what we do here. Basically, we look at the technical part of your images. This is where we look at things like your camera settings, your exposure, noise, your sharpness, and so on. So that part of the image to start. After that, we look at the artistic part of your image. This is where we talk about things like composition, crop, framing, storytelling, and all and everything to do with that artistic part of your photo. And then finally, at the end, if we have extra time, we look at the photo editing part. This is where I give you some tips and tricks on how you could improve your photos using one of the photo editors. Now, you maybe already noticed, or you know, our YouTube channel is mostly about Luminar Neo, and this is why we use Luminar Neo for the photo editing part. However, most of the tips I'm going to give you can be applied using any of the photo editing software. So you will be able to use it regardless on what application you use. So this is what we do every week here. Now, talking about how you can join us with your own photos. Well, it's actually really easy. All you need to do is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com /forward membership, and then you can join our CP Plus or Clever Photographer Plus membership, which for a little monthly fee include access to this photography review show. It also includes our Clever Photographer Academy Facebook groups where we talk all things photography. We share our images, and from time to time we run competitions. And finally, more importantly, or maybe most importantly, it also includes monthly bundles full of digital tools. Usually you get something between 200 or 300 digital tools, and they include custom skies, presets for Luminar Neo, Photoshop, and Lightroom, LUTs, overlays, backgrounds, textures, custom brushes, and everything you can imagine. And the beauty of it is that this bundle also is always themed into certain photography style. So, for example, now in December, the membership bundle was about festive photography. And in January, we will be looking at fantasy photography. So it will have some really cool presets and LUTs that will allow you to turn your photos into that kind of fantasy look. Plus, on the top of it, there will be some great overlays that really can help you to add that extra effect to these fantasy captures. So this is all out of the way. Now you know what we're gonna do, and you know how to join us. So that's great. Now this is, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the last show of the year. So today is 19th of December. That depending where you're from, you may celebrating on the 24th or 25th, but pretty much we have 5 or 6 days till Christmas, and then everybody will be away anyway. So we will be back with another show, I believe, somewhere around 7th or 9th of January. Anyway, all the dates for the upcoming shows are already on our YouTube channel or in the Clever Photographer Academy or also in the membership. So we're going to look at your pictures today, and then we will return again in January. So in the meantime, we have few photos. Now, I was away last week, so it's kind of mixture of different photos. But before we do that, quickly, just to say hello to Tony, Zdeněk, and also Gear from Netherlands. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you for watching live. I hope you're going to enjoy the show. Also, thank you if you're watching on replay, because you can do that on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook group, and also on our Facebook page. So if you're watching in the replay, thank you for doing that, and thank you for joining us. Just quick message for Tony. Tony, I didn't see your images for this week in the bundle. I know that I reviewed your photos last week already. So if you have any, you can still upload them to the Dropbox link, which is on the Facebook page or in the membership. And I'm more than happy to look at them today too. However, in the meantime, we have some really cool pictures from Elizabeth, some really lovely landscape captures. So I think we'll focus on them. And if any of you wants to still join us for today's show, let me do one thing. Let me get the link where you can upload your photos right here. And I will share it under the video. I hope it's going to post everywhere. And if you want, today, very unusually, because normally you have to be part of the membership, but if you want, if you have an image around you would like me to look at, there should be a link under the video, either on YouTube or Facebook. Just follow it, upload the image to Dropbox. And if you manage before the show is over, I will be more than happy to look at your photo or photos. So the link is in the description. Now let me make myself much smaller, so this way Zdeněk doesn't have to remind me again, and we can go for it. So let's have a look at Elizabeth landscape captures. Right here, we have this very moody capture with actually beautiful colors, beautiful, very fantasy feel to it. Then we have this very crisp and saturated landscape with beautiful reflection, great, very clear water with lots of details in it. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Then we have another lovely capture with sun really hitting the rock and a little bit of sky behind and that. And then we have, I would say, a beach, or not beach, a desert or something like that, with a lovely leading line there. So let's start from the front. Now, looking at this image right here, talking about the first impression, I really like that. I like the overall feel of the image. I like the combination of the colors together. I think that works really well. The details are a little bit dreamy. I mean, you can kind of grasp that pretty much immediately. If I kind of zoom in, I wonder if you will be able to see it. You can see that the sharpness isn't really strong. However, the first impression, the first look at the image, I really like it. I really like the depth. I like the white framing. I think all of that looks really cool. But as I mentioned, we're going to start by looking at the camera settings. So looking at this looks like it was captured with mobile phone, Samsung Galaxy S22. Well, in that case, it's even more interesting because I think for a mobile phone, that's a great result. Now, when it comes to camera settings, mobile phone and DSLR, the results are a little bit different, and the setting is a little bit different. So I don't want to spend too much time over it because it doesn't necessarily correspond with how we set up usual cameras. However, just quickly running through it, ISO 40, f2.4, and 1/620th of a second. What's more important is that the exposure is very good. You can see details in the sky. You can see that kind of silhouette effect on the background. And obviously you see the details all the way through, even in the shadows. So in overall, I think technically that part looks really good. Now, I already mentioned the sharpness. It's not great. Often the mobile phone cameras struggle when we're talking about like a high dynamic range. Once we start to include, different levels of shadows and highlights all together, it can be struggling a little bit. And this looks a little bit like a lower light situation, and that's where usually it compensates. And here you can see it on the level of details. Noise isn't really crazy. There is a little bit, but you could definitely get away with it. So I think the main thing is the sharpness. I think the sharpness is struggling on this image, and you can see a little bit of artifacts. For example, on this plant right here, if I zoom in enough for you to see it, you will be able to see that kind of glow and kind of, not glow, like a halo around the plants and around other elements. So that's about that. So I'm not too worried about the technical part because, again, captured my mobile phone. I think that's quite impressive. But talking about the artistic part, there is lots to like here. For example, a depth. It has a great depth. I really enjoy that kind of alternation in the elements, which really adds depth to the overall image. So we have this as a foreground situated on a right. Then we have another part kind of like a middle ground or another level in that piece, which is situated on the left. And then again, it goes to the right and so on. And I think that really works very well. It has a really strong cinematic effect, and I really like it. I think it's really, really cool. So, for example, the depth work very well here. What works very well is also visual balance. As you can see, kind of you get through, and then the horizon is very well balanced together. Nothing is really sticking out, so that's all good there. The rule of thirds, I think, having the third pretty much with the sky and then the 2/3 of the land also often works very well together. And the flow of the image is also really cool. You have that kind of river with the mist over it, which guides you through and navigates to the center, kind of take you through the valley and guide you towards the mountains. So lots of right things here. When it comes to composition, when it comes to photo editing, as I mentioned, it has that kind of moody, warm look, which is almost on a border with kind of painterly effect. But I think it really works very well. I really like the white balance. I think that almost like a sepia monotone look really works well, because if you would want it to be really saturated, I think you would see maybe more of the you know the limits of the mobile phone camera once you start to push details and saturation in this kind of quite challenging situation. I think you start to see more artifacts. So when you go for the more monotone look, I think these things disappear and they can work quite well. So in overall, actually excellent photo. There's not much I would change editing wise. Not necessarily just because I think it works very well, but I also know that once you start to push JPEGs from mobile phones, you start to get even more and more artifacts. So I think the way it looks is really cool. So well done, Elizabeth. Great capture. Now, this, I think, out of them, four images is definitely my favorite. I really enjoy this image right here. There's a lot happening there, but it's just a great combination of different things working together. Now, so let's talk about it. Let's start again by looking at the camera details. And just like the image we looked earlier, this is captured with mobile phone, so Samsung Galaxy S22. And you can immediately see how when it's a daylight, when obviously there is enough light and the camera is getting the most out of it, you also get much better quality. You can see the sharpness, even though it still has that kind of almost illustrated look, but the quality is much better and the result is much better. I mean, for a mobile phone to be able to capture all these details, we're talking about, um, you can see through the water, and then we have the reflection, and then we have the details on the foreground and the details on the middle ground, and then we have details all the way to the mountains. Plus, we have some texture in the sky. I think altogether for mobile phone, I think it's a great result. Looking at it from the camera settings, it's not even all there. Um, yes, ISO, it doesn't say. I wouldn't worry about it because maybe the details are not great. So just technically looking at it, we get a little bit of kind of softness and blur at this part of the image that is a little bit visible, unfortunately. So that's something to work on. It's a combination of there is a softness and blur here, if you can guys see it a little bit. Then we have a little bit of chromatic aberration, mostly a green one, but you can see a little bit of pink one as well. And you see a little bit of the bright halo around some parts. Now, this could be made by sky replacement, or it's simply coming out of the camera. And again, I think for mobile phone is a great capture, but these elements would be quite visible if you would want to print the image or if you would want to share it. So that's just where, often you hear that these days you don't need camera anymore. You can just carry around your mobile phone. That is true to some degree, but even more, even the latest mobile phones still have limitations when it comes to what they can capture, and specifically when you start to capture more demanding scenes with little higher dynamic range or low light situation, you will really see where the mobile phone struggles. So even though it's incredible what it's able to capture, I don't think it's there to replace the camera yet. Now, technically, I love the colors. I quite like the level of the details, knowing it's captured by the phone. There is no noise pretty much. The sharpness isn't great, but it's much better than with the first image, so that's all decent. I think for me, there's just some really distracting parts. There is a halo around the mountain and a little bit of um, like a blue tint there. You get the softness on this side, and then you have that white, bright halo around the tree. So these are the things which, once you start to look at the image, just start to stand out a little bit more. So just something to look out for. Artistically, I think it's really nicely done. I think lots work very well here. I really like the foreground. I think that helps how it kind of just opens the image. The fact that this trunk, for example, is pointing toward the mountain help as well with the overall flow. You guys know that I'm big fan of reflection, so that works really well. I think in overall the color contrast works really well as well. The overall shaping and the choice of the more wide crop works very well as well. So I think it's very lovely photo for for capturing with the phone. I think artistically it's very well done, and I think that's about it. Now for post processing, I would maybe try to take care at least um, of this kind of tint over the mountains and make them a little bit more stand out. So it's a multiple different things that's happening there. You can see that it has a soft haze and it has that kind of blue tint. So let's have a look if we can maybe take care of some of this. We're gonna start with the haze now. Lightroom and Luminar Neo and all of these applications have a simple dehaze slider which can be used. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna apply it to the mountain, and as usual, it kind of applies it to the whole image. You don't want to do that. You only want to apply it to the mountains themselves. So for that, we're gonna apply the dehaze, maybe with a little bit of golden hour. So that already will do a first step for us of removing the blue tint, and then we're just gonna apply it with a brush. So we're gonna make much bigger brush, and we're gonna just paint over the mountains. Now, once we do the selection one, then we can pretty much copy and paste it on all the other tools. So that's a good thing for us. So we're gonna paint over these areas, take our time, and do this. Now, let's just zoom out. Let's come back to adjustments and see golden hour, yes or no. I'm not sure, but maybe with the dehaze down a little bit. And then we go to masking, and we're gonna copy the mask. Then we're going to go into the details. And in the details, we're going to enhance some of the small details of the mountain and a little bit of the medium details. And then, because we only want to apply it to the mountain, we're going to go to the masking, mask actions, and click on paste. So that way, again, only applied to the mountain. And finally, as I was saying, I wanted to take care of the blue tint or the blue cool color. And for that, we need to go into the develop tool, color tab, and here just add a little bit of temperature. I'm thinking maybe somewhere around here. Again, same thing, masking and mask actions, and paste the mask. And now when we zoom out a little bit, what we can do, we can come back to our color and see how much of that, maybe just somewhere around here, and maybe a little bit of tint. And now when we look at the before and after, you can see how it looks so much better. Now, of course, that if I would spend a little bit of extra time making the selection, I would make sure that I don't have the halo around the mountain, but it still give you an idea on what we trying to do. Additionally, a little bit of vignette with maybe a little bit of inner light to add more focus on the center of the image would be also a great idea. But other than that, I think everything works well. Okay, so that was this image. Now we have two more images, so let's just quickly run through it. This was a mobile phone capture. It's a Canon RP with a Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters with the camera settings ISO 100, 161 millimeters, f13, and 1/100 of the second. Now, from the camera settings, all good here. Nice and low ISO, f13 giving you sharpness all the way through, 1/100th of a second, giving you decent exposure. Now, I would be a little bit worried about these darker parts. I think they look a little bit dark to me, but other than that, it all looks good to me. Now, again, looking at this part, you can see, I don't know if it's if they are birds or if it's maybe your sensor or lens, or you can see lots of kind of noise and like specks on the picture basically, which are a little bit distracting. Now it makes me think that this was probably again sky replacement, because you can see the halo around the trees and around the rock. Maybe also a little bit here, but first it's the halo, and then there are these kind of, it's like a dirt or like a dust, which I find quite distracting. So where I think the sky obviously add a little bit of texture, I think in this case it's just a little bit, yeah, it's just a little bit visible. Um, so that I think is the biggest problem. I think artistically it can work quite well. It's a lovely idea, although I find this front part quite distracting. I think that's a shame that it's there. I would wish that it wouldn't be there. I think it just takes lots of attention away. Um, but the rest I think is nice. It's a lovely kind of golden hour feel to the image, but the noise and specks around plus the halo I think take away a lot from the image. And because it's already blended together, there is not much I can do with it, so I will leave it, and we can maybe move on to the fourth and last image. And yeah, here just very quickly coming through and talking about the artistic part, which I really like here. I enjoy the light from the side. I think that creates lovely scene. The flow of the leading line, I think, works really well here as well. The texture and the colors are nicely put together. I think the color contrast works really well. That almost kind of magenta tint with the golden colors in it is a lovely idea. Personally, I wish there would be a little bit more of the sky, maybe like, yeah, about this much, just to kind of get, yeah, a little bit more in. So I would either not put it there at all, so then you'd almost like a presenting a texture, or I would add more to it. So one or the other. But yeah, it's still a lovely, it's very creative, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. As I say, the side light, the leading line, the flow, and the texture of the image works very well, and it's very lovely. So, Elizabeth, those were your photos. And now we can jump to Zdeněk. Tony, I saw your message. We're going to look at Zdeněk photos, and then I will jump into the Dropbox and I will get your photos too. So don't worry, we will definitely get to you too. So, Zdeněk, your turn. I wonder, how do you, Zdeněk, celebrate Christmas in South Africa? Because it must be really warm now, or really warm. I mean, I don't know what temperature would it be, but it should be summertime. Let's see. Cape Town weather. Um, I mean, Celsius. Of course, they show me Fahrenheit. Cape Town, 18 degrees, 23 during the day. That's not bad. Once in my life, I actually celebrated Christmas in Australia. And it was funny because lots of Australians actually celebrate Christmas on the beach. And the Santa was there walking around, but he had like a same costume, but it was a shirt with the same thing and shorts. So red shirt and red short with the kind of white fluff around. And he was barbecuing shrimps on the beach. So that was quite funny. But it was super hot Christmas in Australia, which I celebrated once. So coming back, let's go for Zdeněk photos. We have this picture right here, and I would say that it's ostrich, but I'm not sure. It's a bird, so it's kind of wildlife capture right here. So we're gonna look at that in a moment, and then we have a little landscape here. So we have a panorama landscape right here, which we're gonna look at in a moment. Now, starting with this picture right here, Zdeněk, let's talk about the camera details. Canon M50 with the 24 to 105 millimeters. From the camera settings, ISO 100, 24 millimeters, 1/125th of a second with the f3.5. So from camera settings, all good there. Nice and low ISO. 24 millimeter is quite wide, but definitely works on this one. F3.5 and 1/125th of a second kind of help to really keep the shutter speed nice and fast. That gives you nice level of details, although obviously with that much happening all around, you can see that the bird isn't like a super sharp, crisp sharp, but uh, it's kind of sharp. I think that's the type of image you need to look at in a full view, because once you start to zoom in, you will see how it kind of slowly how you slowly lose the details. But in overall, I think camera settings are quite fine. I think lots of that, not softness, but a little bit of that softness is coming from the wide lens. So that's about it. Now, technically, I quite like the light from there. I think that creates nice scene. um, the sharpness in overall of the image is quite nicely done too. The noise is not really much visible. Now, some parts, especially on the top, are a little bit kind of blown away. You can see that kind of bright glow happening here, and also in this part, which I find just a little bit distracting, to be honest, but that's how it is. So, in overall, very well. For the storytelling, for the composition part, I think I think there's a lots of extra stuff on the top which kind of take away from the attention of the main um, um, subject, which is obviously the bird kind of in that scene. So we're going to try to crop it a little bit tighter. I think that would be my idea for this. And because we crop it a little tighter, we also get reduce of some parts here. So that will help in overall. Other than that, it works quite nicely. I think the problem as we going into that kind of mono scene where we have just really combination of very natural brown pastel colors with that golden uh, colors from the sun, and with that, yeah, just a lack of colors, the bird kind of get lost a little bit in that scene, but that's fine. I think again, if we crop it a little bit, it will help. So actually, let's do that. Let's go right away into the edit module where we're going to go into crop. We're going to switch our ratio into 3, and let's have a look if we would go for something like 16 on 10. Now, that doesn't help us much. So we're going to bring it down somewhere around here, I think. So let's have a look and do something like this. So suddenly we have lost the distraction of the top. Now we could go a little bit tighter if we would want to, but we don't need to. But we're going to go just a little bit like somewhere around here. So we have lost the distraction of the top, and now we are focusing more on this part. Now, in overall, I think a little vignette will definitely help to close the image, and maybe a little bit of inner light this time with the subject somewhere around here will help too. Um, what else could we do? I think if we add a little bit of contrast, so we're gonna go into super contrast and add a little bit of contrast, that will help too. And in overall, I would just like to add a little bit more brightness here, just to navigate the human eyes there. So we can do that multiple different ways, but for us, we're just gonna use a simple develop tool, make the image a little bit brighter, and then we use radial gradient and just point it over this part of the image. So that way, again, we're adding more attention towards the bird and towards that part of the image. So let's have a look. If we look at it like this, take this away before and after, and I think that looks a little bit better. So capture of the ostrich, Zdeněk. I think something like this. I think little tighter crop, little bit more brightness towards the area where the bird is to bring more attention. And I think probably I would take it from there. Yeah. If I would want to play around it with it further, I would add a little bit of mystical tool to just soften a little bit the overall image, because there is a lot of texture around, and I think it gets really complicated and distracting. So a little bit of mystical tool with a little bit of glow and warmth, I think works really nicely together. You could try to apply another LUT to see if you can get most out of it, but for me, I think something like this would work quite well. That brings us to the second image, Zdeněk, and let me just quickly check if So this is a panorama. How many? I wonder how many pictures is this Zdeněk. It's a lovely picture, but I have to say one thing. We need to take care of the sensor dust in this part. And we can do that really quickly here in Luminar Neo by going into Edit, then Erase. And in Erase, we just quickly click on Remove Dust Spot. So we're going to do that. Basically, the application scans the image and it removes the dust spots for us. So just like that, they are gone, which is great. And we can go back to the catalog and continue talking about the image. So this was captured with Canon 77D with the 24 to 105 millimeters. Now from the camera settings, ISO 100, 24 millimeter f10, and 1/160th of a second. So as a camera setting goes, spot on, Zdeněk. Low ISO, 24 millimeters, which for this scene is perfect. F10, giving you sharpness all the way through and still staying in that kind of generally good value between like f7.1 and f11, and 1/160th of a second gives you this nice light all across. Now the light is a little bit not flat, but it's same across the image, which is one only thing. And I think looking at it, we get a little bit of extra saturation, especially in green colors. So because of that, because you can see that we have lots of green in this area, you can see that some of the green tint also coming into the land. And I think it's just a shame. I think it's something we can adjust. So we look at that in a moment. But before that, let's just quickly talk about the artistic part, about the framing, which I really enjoy. I enjoy this kind of bottom frame created with this foliage, which I think it really adds a nice opening to the image. And then the mountain and the rocks here, I think that works really well too. Little bit of sky with texture on the top, and all of that together, I think works really nicely. So well done on that. Well done on putting that together. And let's have a look if we can just help it a little bit. So quickly in the edit module, where we're gonna first start by going into develop tool, again color, and here we're gonna add a little bit of magenta. So let's have a look. We don't want to completely overdo it, but maybe just somewhere around here. And when you look at this part, I just lower it a little bit, and I show you the before and after, you will see how that improve right away. But that's not it. After this, we're gonna also go into the color tool where we're gonna open the HSL panel. And in the HSL panel, we're gonna open the saturation part and we're gonna bring down the green just a little bit, somewhere around here. Now, after that, I think what we also gonna do, we're gonna go into luminance and bring the luminance of the green down a little bit as well. And in hue, we take the green and we make it just a little bit more warm. So that way it will match more the overall scene. Now, once I edit it, it's maybe not that visible, but if we look at this slider, now when you have a look at the before on this side, especially the foliage, it really doesn't look very natural. But once you apply what we just did, I think it looks much better. So for me anyway, you can look at the whole part here. So this is basically the before and after, and I think it works a little bit better for that. Let's switch this off. As usual, little bit of vignette, which you probably already applied, so we don't have to go crazy. There may be a little bit of mystical tool just to add the overall glow, and that's about it. So very, very good, Zdeněk. Thank you very much. So this is what I would do with the image. Thank you very much for sending your images over. I hope it was helpful. And now we're gonna quickly jump to my Dropbox where I'm gonna check if we got any extra emails. So our pictures. Let's have a look. Yeah, we have the pictures from Tony. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab that. 1, 2, 3. Download that. And I'm just gonna quickly add them through here. We need to give it a moment. Sorry for the delay, guys. I'm just gonna quickly get the images. They are right here. Perfect. Add photos. here, select, add. Perfect. Okay, look. So we have these 3 images here. I can drag them into our folder just to make sure that I have them here. And we're going to look at that. So, Tony, a little bit of the weather is now gone for us for going out and capturing flowers and stuff. So now it's time to look at the still life indoor. And here is one of the great examples of that. I really, really like that. I love the light on it because that's not easy. These kind of statues, they can get very quickly lots of reflection, lots of highlights, and this is very nicely done. I really, really like that. In overall, with the gray background and gray base, I think it works very nicely together. So let's talk about this image, which is called Japanese Lady. From the camera settings here, Canon 7D with 18 to 135 millimeters. From the camera settings, ISO 100, 109 millimeters, f6.7, and 1/6 of the second. So as camera setting goes, it's all good there, spot on. Nice and low ISO again, f6.7, obviously on that kind of distance with 109 millimeters on a lens will give you that lovely soft back. And 1/6 of the second, I wonder if it's in combination with flash or no. I can't see it here. But again, it really works very well. I'm really impressed. This is not an easy image, but I think it's nicely put together. So Tony, I like this a lot. From the when looking at the image, the light from the side, I think works really well. The details are nicely done. There is no noise, so that's all good. Now, from the artistic part, as I say, I think it works very well. That kind of slight softness at the back create the separation of the main subject with the background. So I think that's all good. I quite like the overall feel of the image, that it's all on that kind of, again, monotone feeling. So I think that works very well. So everything good on this. I really, really like that. I enjoyed that. Well done. Then it brings us to more, I don't know if we are in Japanese, but more captures. Now, this one has more of these highlights I was talking about earlier. You can see them kind of here and here and here, which are not necessarily distracting, but I was quite amazed that the first one didn't really have them as much. Still, I think it works nicely as well. Again, lovely separation, lovely level of details. The light from the side, I think works really, really well for these type of images. So just quickly, Canon 7D again with 18 to 135 millimeters. And from the camera settings again, ISO 100, 135 millimeters here, f6.7, and 1/10 of a second. So Tony mentions that he doesn't use flash for this. So well done, only tripod. So that works really well as well. I think from camera settings, it's all good there for me. The light is nice. The level of details is nice. Yeah, I think it works very, very well. From the artistic point of view, I think it's nice. I'm not sure about the blue at the background, to be honest. But it's just artistic feeling. I think maybe a little bit of some kind of vintage texture, something which would make me more think of like Orient or Asia. I think that would work a little bit better. Something more darker and maybe with like a old paper feeling. I think that would work really nicely with this image. That would be just my suggestion there. I quite like the crop. I think that works really nicely together. So all put together, well done, very well edited. The background replaced all or added or how it was captured work all well. So great, well done on that. Really, really nice. And then we have third image, which is this gentleman right here. Now, different. Let's have a look. Let me just double check. So same camera, Canon 7D, different lens, 28 to 80 millimeters. And from the camera settings on this one, ISO 100, 61 millimeter, f6.7, and 1/6 of a second. So it's a different feel to it. Again, I really like the depth on it. I think that works really well with the sharpness mostly on the face. I quite like the fact that the stick the statue is holding is a little bit out of focus. I think that really helps with the depth. The position, the light, I think works really nicely too. And the overall feel of it as well. The sharpness is there, no noise, so everything works well. But when we talk about the artistic part, I would, yeah, probably hope again just for a little bit different background maybe. I don't know exactly for what I would like for this one, but I always think that this kind of oriental captures and statues um, would benefit with more kind of background, like a texture background with the typical color for that. So for example, this could be like a mixture of gold and red texture, almost like he's standing in front of some kind of temple or something. So I think that would work nicely together. Maybe a little bit of cleaning, just remove some of the hair with the simple erase tool would be, helpful, just to kind of really finish it off. If you put all the effort in capturing this, I think that's always a good idea, just a little things like little hair on the top or a little bit of dust. Just in overall, I don't want you to remove something that is important for the scene, but I think just a little cleaning always helps, just with the overall feel of the image. But other than that, I think it's great. I think it's really, really lovely, and I think it works very well. So, Tony, thank you very much for sending your images over in this kind of last minute request. Zdeněk, Elizabeth, thank you for sending your images over, even though I know you guys busy before the Christmas and everybody is a little bit busy with the preparation for the holiday season. However, folks, thank you very much for sticking up with us this year and with me. I can't wait to see you again in January, but now we actually going to be open for one more day as a clever photographer, and then we're gonna take week and a half off. We're gonna rest, and then we back with even more exciting stuff for 2024. So have a Merry Christmas, have a great New Year, Happy New Year to all of you. Stay safe, healthy, good luck, and I will see you all back start or beginning of January with more of your photos.